Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sarirasya cha vaidyakena yopakurotam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi stuve patanjalim vyasam shankaram cha munitrayam katra sutrasya bhashyasya kramad vivaranasya cha. Please continue.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the continuation of the discussion on the Yoga Sutras. This meeting will be recorded and it will be posted on YouTube. So if you have missed any of the previous discussions, you may find it on YouTube. Also, if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves and ask. Please use the raise hand feature of Zoom in order to maintain the queue. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself in order to minimize the disturbances. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will continue.
Recording in progress.
Yogena chittasya padena vacham malam sarirasya cha vaidyakena yopakurutam pravaram muninam patanjalim pranjaliranatosmi tuve patanjalim vyasam shankaram cha munitrayam katra sutrasya bhashyasya kramavivaranasya cha. So we were discussing the 40th sutra and we also started discussing the 41st sutra of Samadhipada. So in the sutra number 40, we already mentioned, that is Paramanu Parama Mahattvanta Asya Vasikaraka. So Asya here means of the mind of a yogi. It's a meaning, Chittasya in that sense. Now, through this practice of dharana, a yogi is able to get complete control in terms of concentration on the grossest and also the subtlest. That's a literal meaning. Now, it has something to do with the entire psychological dynamics of concentration. The Sanskrit word in its word of concentration is ekagrita, means that's the Sanskrit word for concentration. Eka means one, agra means end. I mean the sharp point of a needle, of anything that is sharp can be called ekagra, means focused. Now, when our mind is blunt, then it is focused on more than one object. As you know, a blunt instrument cannot cut anything. A sharp instrument can cut. So, when our mind is blunt, it won't be able to concentrate on anything. Now, what's the meaning of saying the mind is blunt or is sharp? When we say that our mind is blunt, it means its attraction, its concentration is dissipated. It simultaneously operates through the 5 channels of perception. It's called Jnanendriya in Sanskrit. The 5 senses of perception. The eyes by which we see, the ears by which we hear, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, and the sense of taste. So these are the 5 channels through which mind flows out and connects with various objects in the objective world. So normally when we do something or when we hear something and we are not able to remember, that's because when we hear, our mind is not fully focused on that. Our mind is also focused on something else. So there is more than one end, one sharp point to the mind. Now, a yogi is able to sharpen his mind. He is able to reduce the bluntness of his mind. Again, this comes with complete self-mastery. It's not that you are interested in something, that you are able to concentrate upon something because you are fascinated by you have a fascination or an attraction for it. No. Whatever you want to concentrate upon, you'll be able to focus upon it. Great spiritual teachers will not often remember material things. That's because their mind normally doesn't go towards anything in the objective world. Because the moment they think of the empirical world, immediately there is the awareness that all these things are changing, impermanent realities. So immediately the mind doesn't go very much into that. But on the other hand, when a yogi or a spiritual seeker, he reads something, hears something, writes something, or mentally connects with something related to something transcendental, something trans-empirical, something spiritual, immediately he is able to remember. So this is an important point to remember. So Vasikara here means complete self-mastery through concentration. And this becomes possible with regard to the grossest, in the objective world, it's called grahya, and also in the process of cognition, understanding, that is called grahana, at the level of indriyas or senses of perception, and also with regard to one's own ego system, that is asmida, that is called grihita. So that's the implication of the coming sutra. Now what happens is, when a yogi is able to concentrate upon the largest and the grossest and also the subtlest, then he covers a huge whole spectrum of objects that he can concentrate upon. And then he reaches the stage, he becomes a kshina vritti, that's the meaning here. Kshina vrittehe means of the person whose chitta has become kshina vritta, means whose chitta with vrittis completely weakened or neutralized, or vrittis completely transcended. That's the meaning of kshina vritta. Now, Swami Vivekananda's complete works, you can find he presents a very interesting example which actually gives a new flashlight into the mystery of our own samskaras, vrittis and actions. He gives the example of hitting a ball with a mallet. Say, suppose in a room or in a hall, a large number of people are gathered. There is one ball, and each of these people has got a mallet or a hammer, whatever it is, in his hand, and they go on hitting this ball. Or maybe just one person, because when you hit it, it bounces back towards yourself, and you hit it. So one person also can do that, go on hitting the ball. Let's say in a room with only one window. Let us say a big room. You are hitting a ball with a mallet, and go on hitting. At some point, it could happen that a ball just flies out of the room through the window or the open door. Only one door is opened. Now, what about the velocity of the nature or the direction of the flight of the ball when it bounces out of the room? Swamiji says that ball bouncing out of the room it corresponds to our present character, vritti, samskara, temperament, personality, whatever it is. And that is the totality of the sum total of all the hits that this ball has received. So, you go on hitting it from different angles. Each of the hit that you do, in a way, plays a role in deciding the direction into which the ball flies out of the room. You may hit, let us say, 99 times. The 100th hit results in the ball flying out of the room. Now it hits against the wall, comes back, again you hit another, it may hit another wall, another side of the wall, and go on hitting. Now the last hit causes the ball to fly out of the room. It is not an independent phenomenon. All the hits that the ball has received have played a role in deciding the direction into which that ball flies out of the room. Similarly, our present personality, the way we act, we think, we behave, all have been determined by every single hit that our mind or personality has received in each incarnation, in each lifetime. So it has something to do with the law of the karma and also the doctrine of reincarnation. So what we are right now is the sum total or the totality of what we have been, what we have been experiencing, what we are doing. All these will have something to do with what we are right now at this moment. Nothing is an accident, nothing is isolated. If we talk in a particular manner, if you behave in a particular manner, if you have a particular temperament, it's all because of so many samskaras, vrittis that have formed, that have played an important role, that plays the determining role in molding our personality and character. Now, let us say each life also accumulates a number of vrittis. Vrittis become samskaras. Samskaras become vasanas. Vasanas mean our natural aptitude, temperament towards a particular action or a quality or an event or a, let us say, or a behavior pattern. And that again decides our sankalpas, and that again will decide our action. And that action again accumulates new vrittis, vasanas and samskaras. This goes on in every life cycle. So that's an interesting illustration. I don't think there is any other illustration in any of the yoga literature where you find such a dramatic and a graphic description of the dynamics of vrittis and samskaras and the roles they play in molding our personality, in determining what we ultimately are. Now, all these vrittis become neutralized. Kshina. It's not chitta vritti nirodha. When you read chitta vritti nirodha, then you become you become completely enlightened. That is the ultimate samadhi. But this is a prelude, a preparation for reaching that state. So that's why kshina vrittihi abhijadasyaiva manehi. So I gave this example. When these vrittis and vasanas and samskaras become weakened, then our mind or chittam becomes a crystal clear diamond, a crystal that is clean and clear. And the clarity of the crystal decides the purity or the clarity of reflection of whatever it tries to reflect. So when our mind becomes completely emptied of all vrittis, then it becomes like a high quality diamond, a high quality crystal. And then, as the commentators say elsewhere, as I mentioned yesterday, tatsthaha, then mind becomes still, stable. And then this dharana will help us to achieve the sthiti padam that you mentioned in the 35th sutra. So you have to refer to the previous sutras, then only we'll be able to fully make out the correct meaning. So the 35th sutra, if you remember, Vishevati va pravattihi utpanna manasasthiti nibandhini, that we described and explained in the light of Vyasa's commentary and also Vajaspati's commentary and also Tattwamayananda here and there. So Vishevati va pravattihi utpanna, the pravritti va vishoga jyotishmadi pravritti utpanna manasasthiti nibandhini. What it means is, so pravritti here means prakrishta vritti. It is a special kind of vritti. So when all these vrittis are gone, sattvika vritti alone remains. And sattvika vritti helps you to become, or to make your mind chittam, and abhijata mani means high quality crystal, perfectly clean and capable of reflecting everything in its totality. So this pravritti is a technical term, of course, that is used only in this yoga context, because pravritti has got a different meaning in Vedanta. It's entirely different. Pravritti means pravritti dharma, nivritti dharma. Pravritti means you plunging into social, domestic responsibilities. Taking care of the welfare of society, one's own individual family and so on. That is the meaning of pravritti. But here, the pravritti has got a different meaning. Prakrishta vritti means is a special kind, an exotic or exalted kind of vritti is called prakrishta vritti. And when this happens, sthiti nibandhini, manasaha sthiti nibandhini, mind becomes steady and stable. That is the implication of this particular word used in this particular sutra, that is 41st sutra, tatsthaha. And then next one is tatanjana, means the quality of being tinged, means when it becomes clean and crystal clear, then it can reflect the color of Purusha. It can completely absorb what it tries to learn. That's why I mentioned earlier, this has something to do with the whole dynamics of concentration as we understand. Concentration means actually we are not able to concentrate on things, we are not able to remember what we try to concentrate. Often we forget because our chittam or mind as not being able to completely reflect or absorb what we try to understand and remember. It's an important thing. And this is a special reference to spiritual subjects. That's a very important thing. We should not get away with the impression that any kind of memory has something to do with spirituality. Not at all. Our human mind has a natural tendency to remember everything in this empirical world. That you have to remember. Why? Because in a normal situation, all the five senses naturally drag the mind towards external objects. So if a glutton walking in the streets lined with, let's say, eateries, restaurants, maybe some wonderful sweets, food items displayed in the shops, A glutton will not forget what he has seen in the sweet shop or a bakery, because the moment he sees that, the idea of eating, tasting, and his own enjoyment of eating that will come to his mind. So all the related thoughts will naturally help him to remember the color, the size, and maybe the price of the particular bread or sweet or whatever he has seen in the shop. But the same person may not be able to remember a subtle, a spiritual idea. That's because he has got tamasika vritti and rajasika vritti. He has not developed this pravritti, prakrishta vritti, sattvika vritti. As we develop sattvika vritti, we are able to connect with, understand and remember and relate higher spiritual ideas. So that's the implication of this second term used, tadanjanata. So tadanjanata means the mind or chittam becoming clear enough to observe and reflect higher spiritual ideas. That's the meaning here. So, and then tadanjanata samapattihi. This is the higher concentration that we are discussing now. After this, the next sutra, that is, we will take up. Tatra shabdartha jnana vikalpaihi sankirna savitarka samapattihi. The first savitarka samapatti is it is a penultimate to nirvitarka samapatti is mentioned here. Now, a state of samapatti or samadhi in which shabda, artha and jnana. Then shabda means the word, the sound. Artha means what it indicates or implies. And also the cognitive faculty, the awareness, the knowledge that comes out of this mixing of shabda, the word and its meaning. These three come together, that is, among these samapattis, that which is mixed, that is, where there is a mutual identification of shabda, the word, and what the word refers to, the referent and the concept and the knowledge or awareness. They get mixed up, then it is called savitarka samapatti. Shabda means is external vibration. Bahya spandana is shabda. When we try to know something, the name, the word equivalent, the audio equivalent, that's the first thing that comes to us. And then through memory or relation or association with previous knowledge, we try to get an idea of what that particular word implies, refers to. And then the pratyaya here means the awareness in our mind. So hearing a sound, understanding what it implies, and what the word implies is this particular object, that awareness. When these things are combined, it is called savitarka samapatti. So first of all, we should remember that we already mentioned this, the 17th sutra of this chapter. Vitarka means concentration on external, sthula, gross object. And vichara, this we discussed in the 17th mantra. Vichara means concentration on sukshma. And here the word tatra. So the tatra is part of the sutra. It means tasu samadhisu. They mean this samadhi stage. Things get mixed up. There is sankirnata. And then it is called this savitarka samadhi, means the word shabda is its implied meaning artha and its cognitive equivalent, jnanam. When they constitute this triangle of meaning, then it is called savitarka samapatti. This is what the elementary meaning. Now here a few things to be remembered. Normally, all human experiences can be called a mixture of these three. That is, Shabda, the word equivalent, and then its implied meaning, and Jnanam. Now, here we should remember, at this first stage of Samapatti, the Savitarka, they get mixed up. But there is a higher Samadhi where your cognition takes place at this stage of Samadhi, where you transcend this mixing up. You are able to cognize and understand things for themselves without mixing up of this Shabda, Artha and this cognitive faculty. Well, let's say I shall try to explain this in the common sense language. Let's say, suppose you, let us say you come to know of an animal or an object or a furniture, whatever it is. The furniture has got a name, and you know that name indicates the shape of a furniture, the objects, and you mix up. So when the word is heard or read, immediately you will understand the particular word indicates this particular objects. And then the awareness that this word actually implies this particular objects. Now, this is the normal world of understanding and cognition. Now, in this experience, there is a problem. That's why it is called a vikalpa. It is not real. Because according to yoga, the real thing is beyond the name, what the name implies, and the knowledge about it. And when you are able to connect that knowledge, then you are able to know everything in this world. We are not able to know everything in this world because our knowledge gets localized by one word. You say, let us say this is a wristwatch or this is a pencil. So the pencil name, the object pencil, and also the understanding. So they get mixed up. But suppose you can connect with that objects independently without these things mixing up. In other words, pure awareness minus its Shabdartha dimension. Pure awareness is called Prajna in Vedanta. In the Vedantic language, you can find many of these ideas are explained in a much more comprehensive logical language, Sangracharya's commentary. What you see, you may have heard of this, some of you must have heard, those who read the autobiography of a yogi, or those who have read works of Paul Brunton, In Search of Secret India. Many books you find, you read about some great yogis who knew everything. They could understand everything. Now, one interesting is, as a part of the yogic evolution, you are able to live in a world which is undivided, which is not divided into past, present and future. So time is experienced to be a single dimensional entity. Right now we understand time in terms of past, present and future. We know very well that there was really no past. When the past was real, we experienced only as a present. Similarly, when the so-called future comes, we are not going to experience future as future, we are going to experience only as a present. So what we now call future is something that is not going to be experienced as future, that we are going to experience only as present. So if the present is only reality, why do you why do you draw a line of demarcation between the past and the present and future? So you find a single dimension. This is with regard to space also. Then, see, very often, space and time are interrelated. Something that exists elsewhere in another time, we think it was like that. Something that is not existing right now, it will be like that. But suppose we can think of a dimension of awareness which is not divided into past, present and future. Then there is only single space, only now, only the present. In Buddhists call it the eternal present. The eternal present. This is frequently used in a rather not in a very respectable way in the counseling and also in pep talks, in management science. You can find people you believe now, today, right now. But this is not something that can be taken in its most elementary meaning. In reality, present is the only reality. That's an important thing to remember. So, if we can understand things without demarcating into past, present and future, and without demarcating into Shabda, Artha and the specified cognition, then you get the non-specified, unspecified, the universal cognition. An object is an object, but you don't see it through empirical eyes, then it is an object. It is a pure awareness of that object. When you come to empirical level, then you say this is a glass, this is a cup, this is a pencil, this is a pen, etc. But as pure awareness, it's called prajna. As I mentioned in Vedanta, it is used in that sense. When you reach that level of awareness, then you know everything. That's what we are going to discuss in the coming sessions. So this description of the Savitarka Samapatti is a prelude to that higher concentration. That's why, as I mentioned, this experience of objects mixing up with Shabda, Artha and Jnana, the word and the object that a particular word indicates, and knowledge related to the association of the word and its corresponding object. That's called Jnanam. When you don't mix up, then there is a reality. If you mix up, it is only a shadow of the reality. So, you see, I know this book, the knowledge of the book. So remove the book, the pure knowledge. That knowledge is prajna. That is that is the result of nirvitarka samadhi, the higher samadhi, where knowledge alone exists, knowledge unconnected with any specific objects. It is this vikalpa, or this what you may call this. It is not a reality, but it is something that can be called a shadow of the reality. It is this vikalpa experience of samadhi matram that Patanjali calls Savitarka samadhi. Samadhi matram means kind of concentration. And as I mentioned, it is not genuine, it is not the real experience, because it is based on knowledge from books. Knowledge means you read something, just like, what is this object? This is name, and that name indicates this object. So also you can get from scriptural books or philosophical books your knowledge. That knowledge is important, but this is Shabda, Jnana, Sankirnata is called. That's used in this sutra. Shabda is Shabda Jnana Vikalpeki Sankirna. Sankirna means mixed up. Shabda, Artha and Jnana mixed up. If we can understand it without mixing up Shabda, Artha, Jnanam, then we'll be able to know everything. In fact, that is the psychological and spiritual explanation of what you may call telepathy, telecommunication. Wherever you read about yogis or spiritual persons or anyone able to understand things without the instrumentality of something, then it is actually the real knowledge. Without Shabda, Artha, Jnana, Sankirna, I mean without mixing up Shabda, Artha and Jnana. When you mix up, your knowledge becomes specific. The knowledge of this time, this wristwatch, the furniture and so on. But knowledge itself, when detached from that object and from that word, the Artha and Shabda, that knowledge is universal. A yogi is able to connect with this universal dimension of pure awareness, because he is able to go beyond this Sankirnata. I mean, he is able to go beyond, he is able to transcend this mixing up of Shabda, Artha and Jnana. That explains the unique powers of mind that you may have read yogis display in knowing things which are, which may be surprising, but it is not a result of, it's not a result of effort as we understand it. Normally when we see, I studied a lot, I read a number of books, a lot of time, you worked and hard and studied, took notes and so on. Now that may work okay. Natural understanding of empirical objects is quite natural. A child will be able to remember the names of toys and chocolates and candies. Perfectly okay. But even a grown-up man will be able to remember, a grown-up man working as a mechanic will be able to remember a lot of things related to his regular work. It is not yoga knowledge. But because anything belongs to the empirical world, we are connecting at the human level, using our mind and the five senses of perception. With eyes and mind you see things, ears and mind we hear things, and sense of touch and mind you touch things, with the sense of smell and mind you smell things, and sense of taste and mind you taste things. That everyone can do. But any kind of higher knowledge is possible only when we reach this level of Sattvika Vritti, which is called Pravarti. And when this happens, when it reaches the highest level of growth and evolution, then you are able to understand things without mixing Shabda, Artha and Jnana. So this is the normal interpretation of this particular sutra. If you want to ask questions, I can try to clarify during interaction. The next sutra is Smriti Parishuddho Surupa Shunye Sati Arthamato Nirbhasa Nirvitarka Samadhi Samapatti is explained here. When our memory, that is Smriti Parishuddho, means it is Adi Saptami is a grammatical term. When Smriti or memory becomes pure, when does our memory become pure? When it is not fixated or obsessed or limited by one particular object and its name and understanding. Shabdartha Jnana. That's an important thing to remember. When our mind transcends the Shabdartha Jnanam dimension, that is a kind of equal triangle. Word, what it indicates, that is called Artha, and the knowledge that comes out of it, Jnana. This is the world of empirical cognition, understandings, what it may be called scholarship. Now, when this is gone, this Smriti, memory becomes pure. Well, to give an example, what do you remember best? Let us say, suppose you are working hard in your room, reading books and everything. You may not remember. But suppose you are sitting in a train or a plane, you are relaxed, and you read something, it may not be very important, that you will remember. Why? Because when you are relaxed, your memory becomes more pure. When you work in a hurry, so many memories come together, completing one with the other. So, when we are relaxed, our memory becomes a little more pure. That's it. Smriti Parishuddho, Surupa Shunye. When memory becomes purified means purified or emptied of the vikalpas that we mentioned in the previous sutra. Shabdartha, Jnana, Sankirnata. Mixing up of word is referred in implied meaning, implied object, and the knowledge that comes out of it. It's called vikalpa. So when our chitta mind becomes fully purified of all these vikalpas, then what happens? Then the chitta becomes, as it is lost in its true nature. That vastu, there is a word used, Sarupa Shunye. Then chitta appears as if it has lost its true nature. And then what happens? Then Surupa Shunye Sati Eva Artha Nirbhasa Sabitarka. Then what happens? Then the referent alone shines its true nature. This an example I mentioned just now. When you are sitting relaxed somewhere, not worrying about anything, totally relaxed, and you read something, you listen to something, that we remember. Because when you are relaxed, all the conflicting memories, everything is completely gone. So what you read at that moment, what you think at that moment, you'll remember. That's because mind loses its natural tendency to be always in a state of fluctuation or conflicts. At that time, what happens is you'll be able to completely observe what you try to observe. At that time, the chitta mind becomes like a crystal clear diamond. That is Abhijadasya Manehi, the previous sutra you read. When a mind becomes like a pure crystal, then it's able to reflect everything. So, if a pure crystal is brought near a red flower, the crystal appears to have become red in color. That's because the crystal has lost its own natural character. Appears to have become, appears. It is actually without any color, pure crystal. There is no dust, nothing. So it has no special color of its own. So when it comes and placed very close to a red flower, it completely reflects the redness of the red flower. And then what happens? That crystal completely gets absorbed in the redness of the object that is nearby. Similarly, when our chitta or mind becomes completely purified of all the vikalpas, all the fluctuations, then what really happens is it is able to remember itself, and that state is called Nirvitarka Samapatti. In other words, this particular sutra describes the direct experience of the real nature. In fact, that's the only way we can correctly understand anything in this world. So clarity of perception and understanding happens when our mind has lost its own natural tendency of always being in a state of fluctuation. Mind is defined as Sankalpa, Vikalpatmika, Antakanavurti, Mana. That's the real nature. That's how mind is often understood in more or less in yoga and also in Vedanta. Sankalpa means, suppose you see an object in front of you. Let us say it is actually it is a pillar. Maybe if there is not enough light, you may suspect and you may think in your mind, yeah, it could be a human being. Or you may, it may be something else, a ghost. So superstitious people may think that way. And when you reach the object, you understand it is only a pillar. So in your mind, there were two thought currents, conflicting thought currents. One is Sankalpa, oh, it is a human being. And of course, you may also think it may be something else, another thought current. Sankalpa and Vikalpa comes. Another probable possibility you may imagine. When you reach the place, you understand it is only a pillar. Now, this is a natural state of human mind. Sankalpa, Vikalpatmika, Antakarna Vritti. Mind is nothing but the name of a function of Vritti. Mind is not an entity. Remember, mind is not an entity. Mind is the name of the function. The mind, you call it mind because a set of vrittis function in a particular manner, in a particular fashion, then it is called mind. Mana in Sanskrit. And the same object, the same thing is called buddhi or intellect. When you reach the object and you understand, you are convinced that it is not a human being, it is a pillar. Nisyatmika antakarna vritti, buddhi, intellect. So what I meant was, mind's natural tendency is to be always in a state of fluctuation, wavering. So that's why smriti parishuddho surupa shunye sati. So when this memory, smriti means memory, parishuddho means when it becomes pure. Parishuddho sati, it is a particular grammatical form called sati saptami. There are many kinds of sati saptamis are there. So when memory becomes purified of all fluctuations, vikalpas, what happens? Then actually chitta appears as if it has lost its natural original state. That's called surupa shunye. Surupa means its own natural state. It is gone. That's why, Yoga Bhashya says, Padaveda Surupa Shunya Iva. This is another way of interpreting the sutra, which is according to Yoga Bhashya, the author of Yoga Bhashya. Anyway, that's not very important now. And then what happens? Such a mind can completely reflect what it cognizes, because it cognizes without the association of mixing up of word is referent and the knowledge. That means Shabda, Artha and Jnana. Then it is called Nirvitarka. So great yogis who are able to remember great things, profound things for a long time, they are able to do that because they have developed this prajna. Remember, prajna in yoga literature means something else that we are going to discuss in the coming sessions. Here prajna means pure knowledge in the Vedantic tradition, non-objectified awareness, you may call it, non-objectified awareness. Normally, all the awareness that we have is objectified. We use the word knowledge only when we mean knowledge of something. We don't use knowledge in this universal dimension. When you use the word universal dimension knowledge, that is only Atma Jnanam only. So all knowledge that we use is only specified or objectified knowledge. Knowledge with a direct reference to an object, a particular object. And that again becomes Savitarka when it mixes up with Shabda, Artha and Jnana. At the same time, When this mixing up is gone, the knowledge becomes pure. Why? Because the memory becomes pure. Smriti parishuddho sati, that's the meaning in the sutra. Then what happens? Arthamatra nirbhasa nirvitarka, that's the meaning. We will continue discussion of these sutras, which are slightly complicated, but shall try to explain also in the light of the commentaries. You are most welcome to ask questions. You should remember Patanjali wrote sutras. So, Alpaksharam asandigdam saravat vishwato mugham astobham anavadyam cha sutram sutra vido vidhu. That is the definition of sutra according to Padma Purana. It means a sutra is a pithy word, a very brief statement. So it will be very few words, loaded with meaning, and when you understand it properly, of course, you have no doubts, but it is capable of expanded interpretations. That is a sutra. So it requires some efforts. So we should not worry if we are not able to understand everything in one reading. Okay, thank you. We can have interaction. Most welcome.
Pranam Swamiji.
Yeah.
So Swamiji, in Vedanta, we also say that when you look at the world devoid of Nama and Rupa, then it's nothing but Brahman. And in this class, we talked about that when you look upon knowledge devoid of Shabda and Artha, then it's pure knowledge. Are the two related concepts?
No, never. We should never read Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta into yoga. Totally different. Yoga is, as I mentioned earlier, yoga is just an analysis of human mind in relation to this empirical world. And yoga is a system of philosophy which accepts the reality of this empirical world. Advaita Vedanta tells you that this empirical world is essentially unreal in the sense it is only relatively real. That's the meaning of Mithyatvam. So we should not mix up. The language of the vocabulary of yoga is different from the vocabulary of Advaita Vedanta. They're totally different things. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Swami.
Yeah. No question, Bobby? You normally begin some discussions?
Hari Om Maharaj.
Yeah.
Maharaj, I had a question which is probably not directly related to what we were talking about today.
Yeah.
But I was reading up some comparison between the Buddhist ideas and Vedantic ideas sometime this week. And one thing that stood out for me was how there was a talk about how these vrittis in Buddhism are not translated from different people. It's like energy which just comes through and creates new. These vrittis come together and then they form new identities which might not directly correspond to older identities. While in Vedanta we have this concept of the vasanas of a certain person specifically being derived from those of the same person in a previous birth. And when you're talking about this hammer today, this again the mallet, this again came back to my mind. So I want to understand what is the Vedantic explanation behind the logic of this. Why we have a single personality taking the deeds and the effects of the deeds into the next janma, and why is how is it different from this?
Yeah. Vedanta tells you that so long as we are not spiritually enlightened, we have to go through these multiple cycles of karmic cycles of lives, death and reincarnation, again this continuation of this wheel of existence. so long as we are not enlightened. And enlightened means realization of our uh, transcendental identity. We are beyond mind, body, mind, complex, and so on. That more or less agree with Buddhist view of nirvana. So Buddhism also almost totally accepts the Vedantic or yogic, the yoga concept of evolution or cycles of lives. For example, according to Buddha, there is called the Praditya Samutpada, 12-link change, which roughly explains the interconnectedness of the past life, the present life, and the future life, and also the continuation of these cycles of life till you get nirvana. And nirvana is this, more or less, it is the Buddhist equivalent of moksha, nirvana, moksha. So the word nirvana is used in Gita also. Brahma nirvanam ruchadi in the second chapter you find, last verse of the second chapter. So in Buddhism, when you realize the truth of dukkha, when you realize there is a reason for this dukkha, there is a cause and there is a way out, and when you realize the way out of dukkha is nirvana, and that is attainable by developing these Ashtanga disciplines, this Samyak Smriti, Samyak Ajiva, Samyak Sankalpa, Samyak Samadhi, Samyak Walk, and so on. There are different, these 8 disciplines. For Samyak means the right word, right speech, right memory, right contact, right concentration, and so on. When you develop these 8 qualities, then you naturally attain nirvana, and then you get out of this wheel. Actually the word wheel also, chakram, is used in Buddhist literature also. This wheel of samsara, that's also Buddhist expression. Vedanta also used. Then you realize this nirvana. Vedanta also says the same thing. So we are now talking about the normal people who don't try to attain this. Yoga philosophy, on the other hand, it says that when you realize your true nature, then you realize you are Purusha, you are not part of this Prakriti, and Prakriti is actually the source of all this evolution, embodiment, sufferings, connecting with the external world, and so on. And when through Pratiprasava, when you get back to your own true nature, then you attain your true identity, that you are Purusha, then you get out of this. So that is the yoga equivalent. Yoga is a dualistic philosophy. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj, for calling on me. I was muted, but I've also been fascinated by Sri Yogi's question, which is
please.
posited in the chat room, and he also has has a hand raised.
Yeah.
He asked about grounding in motion, and if he can be unmuted, he can ask the question himself.
Yeah, please ask. Yeah, please.
Actually, grounding in motion is not a question, it's just a comment about the physics. Has this formulas that predict motion of objects that are hit by random forces in different directions. I think Swamiji explained it in plain English when he was commenting on the Yoga Sutras or some other place.
Yogi, it's really a fascinating connection between the physical, academic approach and what Swamiji was able to posit himself. It's a really amazing thing.
Yeah, the scientific developments came much later, maybe 50, 60 years afterwards. Pranam Maharaj, I have a question about the Smriti. You mentioned the mind is not an entity, it's just a function of dynamic Vrittis function. The definition for Smriti says Anubhuta Vishya Sampromoscha Smriti. which means the experiences are stored or retained.
Yeah.
That implies there is a storehouse where these experiences are accumulated, and it's a persisting entity.
Yeah.
Could you please explain the concept being only dynamic entity?
You know, right now we have just crossed we have finished the elaborate discussions on different kinds of dharana, you know. So this particular state is the result of dharana. So when you reach this level of dharana, then what happens? All the smridis, previous smridis, become pure. So there is a close connection between smriti and vritti, really speaking, you know. So smriti is one of the vrittis, actually, vrittaya panchataya, you know. So there in the beginning itself you find in the list of vrittis, smriti, nidra, you know, all the pramana, vipirya, vikalpa, nidra, smridaya. The last is smriti. Smriti is a vritti after all, you know. So we remember things because of previous actions, previous experiences that deposit deposit these memories and vrittis in our system. It's called karmasya, which will unfold in course of time. In every life cycle it can unfold. So through the practice of dharana, when you reach that higher level of dharana and dhyana, when you reach that level of nirvitarka samapatti, what happens, you know, all these vrittis become emptied. That is kshina vritti, the previous sutra means. Vrittis become kshina, means just like seeds become burnt seeds. They cannot be really called seeds because they cannot sprout. So at that state, smriti parishuddha means, there remember, it is not smrdeka parishuddhi, it is not the purity of smriti, it is the emptying of smriti. Something gets cleaned off, cleared off, emptied off. Smriti, that's the meaning here. It is not purity of smriti, rather it is purified of smritis. Just like a place gets purified of all dirt, means that there is no more dirt. Vrittis are completely gone. That's your kshina vritti, the previous sutra said that. So that is the implication here. When you reach that state, then we are able to cognize things without this mixing up of the shabda, artha and jnana. And when we can actually understand things without mixing up shabda, artha, jnana, we actually go beyond the normal concepts of human cognition. Because normal human cognition is possible only in the context of shabda, artha and jnana. A word is meaning, is implied meaning, and the awareness that brings along with that. When we go beyond that, pure awareness comes. So frequently many of the commentators with strong Advaitic leanings, they try to link these sutras with some kind of Advaitic concept of prajna, prakashena jnana. So there are, at some higher level you can see they are all interconnected. But at this stage we have not reached that state. So here remember, smriti parishuddha means when the chittam becomes purified of, emptied of all smritis. Why? Smriti is actually the last of vrittis. Pramana, viparya, vikalpa, nidra, smritaya. Vrittaya panchataya. Vrittis are fivefold. Smriti is the last and fifth one. That's also gone. Then you can cognize things. That is why when I gave this example, when our mind is in a very relaxed mood, when we are not thinking of anything, that means there are not many vrittis and memories agitating in our mind. At that time, if you read something, you are likely to remember that. That's important thing. In the midst of many other things, if you read or hear something, you may forget it. But when you're relaxed, you're sitting in an easy chair, somewhere you're alone, then you read something, you hear something that you may remember. Why? Because there are no agitating vrittis and smritis. I mean, these thought currents and memories rushing into the mental system. Then you remember things. That's the idea behind. So every one of the sutras can be stretched to one end, and you can somehow connect it to some normal everyday life context of our human experience.
So Maharaj, this smriti, when by the time smritis are cleared of the mind, but is nidra is also one of the vrittis. It comes before smriti. Is it also gone?
No, you won't lose your ability to go to sleep. That's the meaning. Nidra is called a vritti because in sleep here means not deep sleep, but in normal dream or other state. In deep sleep, you don't accumulate new vrittis, but you don't lose old vrittis. So, of course, in deep sleep, this vritti, I had a good sleep, that is there. So, in sleep also, we accumulate dreams, all these can create vrittis and deposit vrittis in our mental system. So, in that sense, nidra is called a vritti. It doesn't mean that our ability to sleep will be lost, not at all. What it means is all the vrittis accumulated through sleeping times till now, they will be emptied. Mind will be emptied of all of them. That's the idea behind.
Thank you.
Swamiji,
Yeah.
Ms. Jyoti, it seems from all this analysis of Yoga Sutras, it's like a physician's analysis of the human body, where anatomically we analyze and say this is the brain and this is the bone and this is the bone marrow. So everything in the thought process, how it arises, how it's analyzed, it seems like the total understanding of functioning is what's explained in this Yoga Sutras. And so when we sometimes talk about, say, let's assume I'm not been to Africa, but somebody gives me a map and gives me pictures of Africa, it still just stays in the mind. But until I see Africa and experience it, I won't realize it. So the vrittis that you have explained, unless, of course, it's all the normal thought process, which is very well analyzed by these Yoga Sutras. So whenever we have a thought or we have an action, I guess we can analyze it from the Yoga Sutra point of view and see how we are applying this or our action. Why did we do this action? Why did we react this way? And our behavior will fit into one of the models of what you have described.
Yeah, that's true. So Yoga Sutra, we should not make the mistake of every day analyzing and minutely analyzing and studying and making our own assessment of our mind. People will go crazy. We should not do that. This is a very important thing to remember. Many people, they work very hard analyzing their own mind, their own thoughts, their own emotions. That will be totally dangerous. It even can lead to some kind of insanity. The main thing is, we should know that the nature of the mind is to throw up these conflicting vrittis, vasanas and samskaras. Once we keep that awareness in our mind, we won't be very much affected by the fluctuations and waverings of the mind. That's the only purpose of studying Yoga Sutra. This is important. Of course, from an academic perspective, I don't think modern psychologists have fully discovered the depth of spiritual psychology of the Yoga Sutra literature. I don't think so, for many reasons. One reason is the traditional commentaries are not directly available for close analysis by people who are not trained in Sanskrit and Yoga Sutra and also in modern psychology. So, a traditional Sanskrit Pandit studying Yoga Sutra, writing a commentary, will not be able to bring out these aspects of Yoga Sutra literature because he is trying to understand Yoga Sutra in the Yoga Sutra tradition. And modern psychologists who have not studied Yoga Sutra from a traditional teacher also will lose the real implication. He will try to equate something and he won't be able to, for example, understand the meaning and the implication of samskara, which is a unique contribution of Vyasa. He won't be able to correctly understand samskara. He will think it is only memory. Samskaras, vrittis, they will dismiss as memories. But they are not memories. There are certain irresistible forces in our own mind which actually function, which drive us in one direction, whether we like it or not. And even if you take a medicine to forget it, it will come back. So, the main problem is some of the concepts like karmashaya, the deeper layers of samskaras, where they remain and they try to manifest in different age cycles. So, for example, when a person grows when he reaches a particular age, certain samskaras from previous life will begin to manifest. At another age, another set of samskaras will begin to manifest. So, these ideas may not be clearly recognized in their full seriousness and maybe accuracy by modern psychologists. And traditional yoga interpreters, they will use the word samadhi, that's all. Which is a wonderful word, no doubt, but in our dharana, what it means, you have to connect a bridge between these ancient times to our own age, our own times. So that is a difficult task. So anyway, all that I was doing was make an effort in that direction. To what extent it has been fruitful is for you to judge. So thank you for all the questions now, and we had a very fruitful discussion. Thank you. Namaskar. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.
Recording stopped.
So we have an announcement for you. Please remember, announcement. We have a program on 9th October, Durga Puja. So on Durga Puja day, that is 9th October, Saturday, we have online Durga Puja, and then you can attend this program. And then, of course, another very important subject is on 10th Sunday, there will be no Sunday lecture. Please remember that. And then another important information I want to convey. Many of you are attending our Bhagavad Gita classes also. After next Friday class, that is after 15th, the following Friday class will be an in-person program. But it will be available for those who want to observe, attend these classes on YouTube. It will be available. So please remember, our Vedanta Society, San Francisco, 2323 Vallejo Street. I mean the corner between Vallejo and Fillmore Street. That's the new temple of the Vedanta Society, Northern California, San Francisco. We will have Sunday lecture from 17th October onwards. Every Sunday, our Sunday lectures will be delivered in person in the new temple auditorium, 2323 Vallejo Street, San Francisco. That is an important information. It will be available online also, YouTube. You have YouTube also. And second announcement I already made, the Durga Puja festival on 9th October, Saturday. The puja will begin at 10 o'clock. It will be over by around 2 o'clock. And again, next Friday will be our last Zoom session for Bhagavad Gita. Remember. So next Friday, 15th October, will be the last Zoom session for Bhagavad Gita class. The following Friday onwards, it will be given as an in-person lecture in the old temple. So you can remember our old temple, some of you may remember, the first Hindu temple in the Western world, built in the year 1905. And it was built by Swami Tattwamayananda, who came here at the request of Swami Vivekananda for this work. This is a very unique building in the city of San Francisco, considered to be one of the most exotic buildings. There are many articles written about this. That is the corner of Filbert and Webster Street, 2963. So you have to enter our auditorium, Old Temple Auditorium, from Filbert Street. So please remember, next Friday will be the last Bhagavad Gita class on Zoom. From the following Friday onwards, it will be an in-person program. But you will be able to watch online through YouTube also. Okay? So thank you, and you should, those of you, I know there are many of you who have not visited the old temple or new temple. It's not a long distance from here, and of course we have many wonderful friends from other continents, so, or maybe other states of the United States. So I can't request them to come here for this, but you can always watch our events on the YouTube. Thank you, and please see our website also, that is savedanta.org. There also you can see the links and the YouTube live stream links information. Thank you. Namaskar. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you.